Hey everyone, it's the Aries 1999 back at you again with another video for Dwelvers in the Dungeon. Last time we talked about special abilities in Magic, and today we're going to talk about how to spend the spoils of battle.
So first up is everyone's favorite, shopping. Now I've included a list of sample prices that things can be bought and sold for, and as a general rule, any item can be sold for half of its purchase value, and the price can then be adjusted based on the condition of an item. So for example, if you stab someone to death, then the leather armor that they looted from them may not be worth as much, but this is where a cold shot can come in to not damage the loot. And in addition to the town store, there are also dungeon stores. So a dungeon store will purchase things for 1/4 of their normal price. So simply put, they need more money to justify their useful location, so they also charge 1.5 times the normal price for an item. So it's kind of a risk reward that this is like an easier way to offload some equipment quickly, but you won't get as much money for it. But the upside is that you are able to get some gold now, and you don't need to carry it as far. So for example, if you are at your carrying capacity, this could be a quick way to offload just a few miscellaneous items, get you straight down to your capacity, then travel back to town to sell the rest of it. And depending on the vibe of the game, you might have several different versions of the store. So for example, there might be one type of store that sells everything, or several different stores for different kinds of items. You also may or may not allow haggling. And if you do, I think that this could be a good use for an influence check. And basically one way that this might work is that whatever they roll on their check gives them a % bonus in their favor. So for example, let's say they're selling a sword that normally would yield them 10 gold for the sale. Then if they get a 10 on their influence check, then the merchant might be willing to buy it for, say, 11 gold. I would say, though, that if they're doing this, then they can't sell an item back to the merchant for more than they just bought it, creating some sort of like infinite money glitch or something like that. But hey, if that's the way you want to play the game, don't let me stop you. Next, let's look at leveling up. Each creature has a power level, and when you defeat them, you get experience. You gain more experience, obviously, for defeating more powerful creatures and for coming over larger obstacles. And this starts at, 25 experience for a level 1 creature, then it goes up to 50 experience for level 2, then goes up by 50 each time after that. And experience points are divided evenly among all player characters who survive the encounter. That's a crucial word because, hey, the system is based on the idea that player characters can drop at any time, unless you are Droll. And yes, that is a joke for the players in my Dwelvers in the Dungeons game if they're watching this. Long story short, he has like an 11 for his nimbleness, so he almost never gets hit. It's become a lot of fun, and it's kind of like a running joke throughout the campaign that he's more or less a god. Now, but I will later tell the story of their adventure so far, but anyway, after you've gained enough experience, you will level up and gain new abilities. You start at level 1, and each level you go up requires additional 100 experience times the level. So for example, getting to level 2 requires 200, then getting to level 3 will require another 300 for 500 total. Each class is 5 levels, but after gaining the 5th level, you may take levels in another class. So there's a lot of words to say that the higher level you get, the more experience you need, and eventually you can multi-class after finishing with your main class. Each time you level up, you roll 1d6 plus your durability and add it to your max health. And each time you level up, roll 1d6 plus your durability and add it to your max health. And you get another special from your class list as well. Then each class also has specific features that they get at each level. So for instance, warriors get more attacks, priests usually become sturdier, scouts can deal more damage, and mages get better spellcasting. Now, you won't always be going on adventures, though. So, what do you want to do in your off-season? Well, one thing you can do is train to improve yourself. In order to train, you must find a qualified mentor who's willing to teach you. Most training takes 30 days and costs 1 gold per day. So, after a month of training, you can either raise a skill by 2 points, gain a feature in your class, or train to obtain a feat.
Riverwood's agreeable enough, I suppose. I'll show you what I know.
Now, feats are special features in-game that give you more abilities, and each feat has various levels. So, for instance, a level 0 feat requires 1 week of training, but otherwise you must spend 30 days per feat level. So if you want a level 4 feat, that's a third of the year spent training and 120 gold pieces. Some feats do give you access to special features as well, which you can then take when you level up. So for some sample feats, for instance, level 1, Bloodlust. Add to your attack and defense each time you get a kill. Anger be now your song, immortal one. Achilles' anger, doomed and ruinous, that caused the Achaeans loss on bitter loss and crowded brave souls into the undergloom, leaving so many dead men, carrion for dogs and birds, and the will of Zeus was done. Then there's martial arts, which, as you might be able to imagine, makes you better at unarmed attacks.
I hate all of you.
And then weapon training, which greatly boosts your capacity with a single weapon, like swords or clubs or something like that. Okay. So for level 2 feat, though, there's Eagle-Eyed, which lets you shoot further with a ranged weapon without having the same penalty that you normally have with that. For a tier 3 feat, there is Night Vision, which, yes, is intentionally kind of a higher level feature compared to something like Dungeons & Dragons, where a lot of characters just start with that. And that's because, part of the challenge and balance of the game is navigating your way through the dark. So that was actually one of the core ideas I had when building this system, was that, the dark itself is a challenge. And for a tier 5 feat, there's Water Breathing, which, as you can imagine, lets you breathe underwater. Pretty straightforward. Then you can use your skills to get a job in between adventures. And hey, that job could include being a mentor. So a normal job is for a week at a time, and depending on what your skills are and what you can do, you'll make different pay amounts. But for just routine labor, you'll make about 3 silver per day, but that all will scale based on how high of a level you are and what you can do. And a normal job also requires you to use a trained skill. So for example, you might use Demolish to chop trees for lumber, or you might use Trap Making to sell game, or you might use Nature to, collect some berries. If your Game Master lets you become a mentor, then that's going to be for 30 days at a time, and you make 1 gold per day, minus any expenses you need to use to train your pupil. So you need to be a high enough level and well skilled in whatever it is you're trying to teach. And your Game Master may also decide that you need a certain amount of reputation before anyone will pay to train under you. But hey, once you have that, though, then this could be a good way to, raise the understanding of your character, or could even be like a new way to introduce a new character later down the road. So for instance, if your main character dies, you can be playing as the person who you trained under, and that way it's kind of like a legacy thing going down. Now, when you feel like your character has reached a good stopping point, you can retire them. They're now safe from the adventuring life, and they can do whatever. Maybe they'll become a mentor somewhere. Maybe they'll just live in the woods. Maybe they just quietly fade from the game, or maybe they'll become an NPC, and you get to make a new character. And if you retire a character at higher levels, you get a feat for your new character. And if you want, there are plenty of other ways that your retired character can come back. Perhaps you have some sort of all-stars game in the future where everyone's favorite retired character gets together to save the day in a very high-level game. Another idea is to retire, quote-unquote, your character into a new system. So, for example, your large mage could become a half-orc bard in a Pathfinder game. Then you circle back to Dwelvers in the Dungeons every so often when your new character who now has some sort of high-level feat or something. And then those two games exist in the same world, which is something that I've always really liked the concept of, different game systems existing in the same world to cater to different types of players, or even just different types of games. And another thing that Dwelvers in the Dungeon could be useful for is to get a party going, even if it doesn't necessarily fit you long term. Because at the end of the day, the game system is not the game world. You could have one fantasy world with as many different groups in it as you want. It's all up to you.
Okay, so there you go. That's the broad strokes of how leveling up works, what you get at various levels, and how you can spend your gold to go shopping or to train or anything like that. Next time, we're going to be following up with a video, this time talking about the various dangers in the dungeon. So monsters, traps, all that fun stuff that makes the treasure all the more exciting to get. if you have any ideas for, various ways that people could train for feats or items for purchase, or just how I might be able to tweak the economy, go ahead and put those in the comments. You can check out the description for my full work in progress rules doc. And if you want something talking more about, fantasy gold, I do have a video from early 2020 where I tried to estimate the value of, D&D gold in real world currency terms. It's a very game theory style thing that I tried to do. I think my methodology was way off. It was probably a very inaccurate estimate, but hey, it's a fun video. So go ahead and check that out if you want. Going to try to make my next Dwelvers video as soon as I can. But until then, have a great day and God bless.